The day started like any other. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. Birds chirped in the trees, and people went about their routines. In New York City, taxis honked as they navigated busy streets. Children laughed on playgrounds, and office workers sipped coffee while scrolling through emails. Life on Earth felt normal, predictable even. But deep in space, something was about to change everything. Far above the planet's atmosphere, a strange shimmer appeared in the void. It wasn't visible to the naked eye, not yet. Satellites orbiting Earth detected unusual energy readings, but before scientists could analyze them, dozens of massive ships materialized out of nowhere. They were enormous, each one larger than a small city. Their sleek, metallic surfaces reflected the sunlight, making them look almost beautiful until their weapons powered up. The ships belonged to an alien race called the Krill. Ruthless and efficient, they had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy. To them, Earth was just another target, a resource-rich planet ripe for exploitation. Within moments of their arrival, a voice boomed across every communication channel on Earth. It was deep, cold, and mechanical, translated into every human language. "Attention, inhabitants of this world," the voice said. "You are now under the control of the Krill Empire. Resistance is futile. Surrender immediately or face annihilation." People froze where they stood. Phones dropped from hands. Cars came to abrupt stops on highways. No one could believe what they were hearing. Aliens? A war? It sounded like something out of a movie, not real life. But disbelief quickly turned to terror when the Krill opened fire. Massive beams of energy shot down from the sky, striking cities around the globe. Buildings crumbled. Fires erupted. Panic spread faster than anyone could react. In Chicago, Jack Morrison was tinkering with an old motorcycle in his garage when the first blast hit. He heard the explosion miles away, a deafening roar that shook the ground beneath his feet. At first he thought it might be thunder. Then his phone buzzed furiously with alerts. News outlets reported chaos everywhere. London, Tokyo, Sydney, all under attack. Jack stepped outside and looked up. Through the haze of smoke, he saw flashes of light streaking across the sky. His heart sank. Whatever was happening, it wasn't going to end well. Meanwhile, in Houston, Texas, Emily Dawson was running late for work. She worked at NASA, analyzing data collected by telescopes and satellites. As she drove toward the Johnson Space Center, her car radio crackled with emergency broadcasts. Unidentified objects in orbit, military forces mobilizing. Unknown origin. Her stomach tightened. Something big was unfolding, and she didn't like the sound of it. When Emily finally arrived at her office, the place was in disarray. Colleagues huddled around computer screens, frantically trying to make sense of the situation. One of them pointed at a monitor showing live footage of the alien ships. "They're huge," someone muttered. "What do we do?" Before anyone could answer, armed soldiers stormed into the room. They wore uniforms bearing insignias Emily didn't recognize. A man with a stern expression approached her. "Dr. Dawson," he said firmly, "you need to come with us." "What's going on?" she asked, clutching her bag tightly. No time to explain. "Just follow me." Emily hesitated, but obeyed. Outside, a helicopter waited. She climbed aboard without knowing where they were taking her or why. All she knew was that whatever was happening, it was serious. Back in Chicago, Jack received a call too. It came from General Alan Hayes, a retired officer who had once been his mentor during his days in the Air Force. Jack hadn't spoken to him in years, so when the general's name popped up on his screen, he answered immediately. "Jack," the general said, his tone urgent, "I need you to listen carefully. There's no time to waste. Get to Area 51, now." "Area 51?" Jack repeated, incredulous. "Why would I go there?" Because you're part of something bigger than you realize, the general replied. Cryptically, trust me, son. If you want to help save this planet, get moving. Jack didn't argue. He grabbed a duffel bag, packed some essentials, and jumped into his truck. The drive to Nevada would take hours, maybe longer given how chaotic traffic had become. But he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose again. As Jack sped westward, Emily's helicopter touched down in the middle of the desert. Soldiers escorted her to a hidden entrance carved into the side of a mountain. Inside, fluorescent lights illuminated long corridors lined with steel doors. She followed silently, her mind racing with questions. What did these people want from her? Why had they brought her here? Eventually, they led her to a large conference room filled with maps, holographic displays, and high-ranking officials. Standing at the head of the table was none other than General Hayes. He greeted Emily warmly despite the tension in the air. "Dr. Dawson," he began, "thank you for coming. We don't have much time, so I'll get straight to the point. You've been working on classified projects for years, though you may not have realized it. Your research on dark matter has been instrumental in developing technology we desperately need right now." Emily blinked, stunned. What kind of technology? The general gestured to one of the holograms. It showed designs for sleek, futuristic spacecraft, unlike anything she'd ever seen. "This is Project Eclipse," he explained. "A fleet of advanced warships built using reverse-engineered alien tech. They're humanity's last hope against the Krill." Jack arrived at Area 51 shortly after Emily. He was ushered into the same conference room, where he found her sitting quietly, still processing everything she'd learned. When their eyes met, they exchanged a brief nod of acknowledgement. Neither spoke. There was no time for introductions. General Hayes wasted no time laying out the plan. "We've kept Project Eclipse hidden for decades," he told them. "These ships are equipped with weapons and defenses far beyond anything currently available, but we've never tested them in combat. That changes today. Jack, you'll command the flagship Aurora. Emily, your expertise will ensure the fleet operates at peak efficiency." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Me? Commanding a spaceship? Sir, I haven't flown anything in years." "You're the best pilot we've got," the general replied firmly. "And frankly, we're fresh out of options." Emily chimed in, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "If we're really doing this, we need to move fast. Every second counts." With that, preparations began. Engineers scrambled to ready the fleet, which consisted of 6 ships in total. Each vessel gleamed with cutting-edge design, its hull reinforced with materials stronger than steel. Weapon systems hummed with untapped power. For the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered in the hearts of those involved. As the fleet prepared to launch, Jack and Emily shared a quiet moment alone. They stood near a viewing window, staring at the ships below. Neither spoke at first, both lost in thought. Finally, Jack broke the silence. "So," he said, glancing at Emily, "dark matter, huh? Sounds complicated." She smiled faintly. "It is, but if it helps us fight back, I guess all those late nights in the lab were worth it." Jack nodded. "Well, I'll do my best not to crash us into anything." Emily chuckled softly. "Just try not to, okay? We're counting on you." Outside, the world burned. Cities lay in ruins, and millions mourned their losses. Yet beneath the surface, humanity's secret weapon stirred to life. Against impossible odds, a ragtag group of engineers, scientists, and pilots prepared to defy fate. The battle for Earth survival was about to begin, and Jack and Emily were at its center. The launch of Project Eclipse was a sight no one in the room would ever forget. The 6 ships, hidden for decades beneath the Nevada desert, rose slowly from their underground hangars. Their sleek designs glinted under the harsh desert sun as they ascended into the sky. Massive engines roared to life, shaking the ground and sending clouds of dust swirling around the facility. For Jack Morrison and Emily Dawson, standing near the control center, it felt surreal. They had spent years working on pieces of this project without realizing how big it truly was. Now seeing it all come together, they understood the stakes and the responsibility resting on their shoulders. As the fleet moved into orbit, the crew aboard Aurora, the flagship, began running final checks. Jack sat in the pilot's seat, gripping the controls tightly. He wasn't used to commanding something so advanced. The dashboard in front of him was filled with glowing screens and buttons, each one labeled with technical terms he barely understood. But he didn't have time to second-guess himself. General Hayes had trusted him to lead this mission, and failure wasn't an option. Emily worked nearby, her focus entirely on the ship's systems. She monitored power levels, weapon readiness, and shield integrity. Her research on dark matter had been key to developing the propulsion system that allowed these ships to travel faster than anything humanity had ever built. As she watched the numbers scroll across her screen, she felt a mix of pride and fear. If the fleet failed, Earth would fall. There were no other plans, no backup options. This was it. From orbit, the view of Earth was breathtaking, but heartbreaking. Smoke billowed over major cities, and craters scarred the landscape where Krill weapons had struck. Fires burned unchecked in places like New York and London. Even from space, the destruction was clear. Jack stared out the window, his jaw clenched. "We're too late," he muttered bitterly. Emily heard him and turned around. "No," she said firmly, "we're not. Look at what we've got here. These ships are our chance to fight back. We can still make a difference." Jack nodded, but doubt lingered in his eyes. Fighting aliens with superior technology seemed impossible, even with the best equipment humanity could build. Still, he forced himself to push those thoughts aside. Worrying wouldn't help anyone. Action would. The fleet's first objective was simple: disable one of the Krill's orbital cannons. These massive weapons were stationed high above Earth, firing devastating energy beams down onto the planet. Without them, the invaders' ability to attack would be severely weakened. The challenge was getting close enough to strike without being detected. The Krill had sensors capable of spotting almost anything in orbit, so stealth was critical. Emily suggested using the cloaking technology installed on all 6 ships. It wasn't perfect. There was always a risk of detection, but it gave them a fighting chance. The plan was to split the fleet into 2 groups. 3 ships, led by Jack aboard Aurora, would approach the cannon directly while the others provided cover from a safe distance. If everything went according to plan, they could destroy the weapon before the Krill realized what was happening. As they approached the target, tension filled the air. The crew worked silently, their movements precise and deliberate. Jack kept his hands steady on the controls, guiding Aurora closer to the cannon. On the radar, red dots indicated enemy ships patrolling the area. One wrong move and they'd be spotted. "Cloaking holding steady," Emily reported softly. "Keep your speed low. Any sudden changes could give us away." Jack nodded. "Got it. Everyone stay sharp." Minutes ticked by like hours. Finally, they reached the cannon. It was enormous, its surface bristling with weapons and antennas. Up close, it looked even more intimidating than it had from afar. Jack signaled the other 2 ships to take positions on either side of the structure. Together, they unleashed a barrage of missiles designed to penetrate the cannon's defenses. At first, it seemed like the plan was working. Explosions rocked the cannon, sending debris floating into space. But then alarms blared throughout the fleet. "We've been spotted," one of the crew members shouted. "Krill fighters incoming." Dozens of small alien ships swarmed toward them, their weapons blazing. The cloaking technology couldn't hide them anymore. Jack cursed under his breath and took evasive action, dodging blasts of energy. Around him, the rest of the fleet scrambled to respond. The battle had begun. For the next several minutes, chaos reigned. Lasers streaked through space, lighting up the darkness. Jack maneuvered Aurora with skill honed during his days as a pilot, weaving between enemy fire while returning shots of his own. Beside him, Emily coordinated the fleet's movements, her voice calm despite the danger. "Vanguard has taken heavy damage," she called out. "They need support," Jack hesitated. Helping the damaged ship meant exposing Aurora to greater risk. But leaving it behind wasn't an option either. He made a quick decision. "Cover me," he ordered the remaining ships. Then he pushed the throttle forward, racing toward Vanguard. Inside Vanguard, Lieutenant Sarah Bennett fought to keep her ship intact. A brilliant engineer and fearless leader, she had earned the respect of everyone aboard. But now her vessel was falling apart. Hull breaches threatened to suck crew members into the vacuum of space, and the engines were failing. When Jack arrived, she sounded relieved. "About time you showed up," she joked weakly over the comms. "I was starting to think you'd abandoned us." "Not a chance," Jack replied. "Hold on tight. We're getting you out of here." With the help of the other ships, Jack managed to draw the Krill fighters away from Vanguard. It bought Sarah enough time to stabilize her ship temporarily. But the victory came at a cost. Just as Vanguard limped toward safety, another explosion lit up the battlefield. One of the smaller ships, Phoenix, was hit hard. Its shields collapsed, and moments later, it broke apart in a fiery burst. "No!" Emily cried, watching the wreckage drift away. She knew some of the crew personally, including Captain David Lane, a kind man who always had a smile for everyone. Now he was gone, along with everyone else aboard Phoenix. The loss hit her hard, but there was no time to grieve. The mission wasn't over yet. Back at the cannon, the crew launched a final assault. With renewed determination, they targeted its core reactor. A direct hit would cause a chain reaction, destroying the entire structure. Jack led the charge, flying straight into the heart of the enemy defenses. Laser blasts narrowly missed him as he closed in on the target. Finally, he locked onto the reactor and fired a powerful missile. The impact triggered a massive explosion, engulfing the cannon in flames. "We did it!" Emily exclaimed, relief washing over her face. "The cannon's down!" Cheers erupted throughout the fleet, but they were short-lived. The battle had taken its toll. Vanguard was heavily damaged, and Phoenix was lost forever. Casualties weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Yet amid the grief, there was also hope. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck. Back in one, news of the fleet's success spread quickly across Earth. Survivors trapped in bunkers and shelters heard reports of the destroyed cannon and celebrated cautiously. It was a small victory, but it proved that resistance was possible. Slowly, people started referring to the fleet as Earth's last stand. To many, it represented courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to surrender, even in the face of overwhelming odds. On board Aurora, Jack and Emily shared a quiet moment after the battle ended. They stood near a viewport, staring down at Earth. The planet below was scarred and broken, but it was still home. Jack sighed deeply, his expression weary. "One cannon down," he said. "How many more are out there?" "Too many," Emily admitted. "But if we can take out enough of them, maybe we'll give Earth a fighting chance." Jack glanced at her. "You really think we can win this?" Emily hesitated before answering. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. Giving up isn't an option, not when there's still hope." Her words resonated with Jack. Despite the losses, despite the challenges ahead, he felt a spark of determination ignite within him. Humanity might be outnumbered and outgunned, but it wasn't defeated, not yet. And as long as people like him and Emily refused to quit, there was always a chance. Far below, Earth continued to burn. But in orbit, a new force had emerged. A secret fleet, born of desperation and driven by hope. had proven itself capable of standing against the Krill. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity dared to believe that victory might be possible. The fleet regrouped in the shadow of Earth's moon, a safe haven for repairs and planning. The silence aboard Aurora was heavy, broken only by the hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of static from the comm system. Jack sat slumped in his chair, staring at the dashboard in front of him. The battle scars on the ship were visible everywhere, burn marks on the walls, flickering lights, and patches where engineers had hastily sealed hull breaches. But it wasn't just the physical damage that weighed on everyone. The loss of Phoenix lingered like a dark cloud over the crew. They had known the risks going into this fight, but knowing didn't make it easier to bear. Emily walked onto the bridge, her face pale but determined. She carried a tablet under her arm, its screen filled with data about the Krill's orbital cannons. Her fingers traced lines and numbers as she tried to focus on the task ahead. Forcing herself to push past the grief, she approached Jack. "We need to talk," she said softly. Jack glanced up at her, his eyes tired. "What is it?" "I've been analyzing the cannon we destroyed," Emily explained, setting the tablet down on the console. "There's something you should see." She tapped the screen, bringing up a holographic model of the weapon. It was enormous, layered with intricate designs that looked alien yet strangely familiar. "Look here," she said, pointing to a section near the core. "This part, it matches patterns we've seen in other Krill tech, specifically their shield systems." Jack frowned. "You think they're connected?" "Not just connected," Emily replied, her voice rising with excitement. "I think their shields rely on harmonic frequencies. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we might be able to disable their defenses entirely." Jack leaned back in his seat, rubbing his temples. "Even if that's true, how do we do it? We barely survived taking out one cannon. Their entire fleet is out there waiting for us. We adapt," Emily said firmly. "That's what we've always done. Remember, these ships are prototypes. We built them to handle situations exactly like this. All we need is time to modify the weapons." Time was something they didn't have much of. Reports from Earth painted a grim picture. The Krill continued their relentless assault, targeting cities that had already been devastated. Refugees crowded into underground shelters, praying for salvation that seemed impossible. Every hour they wasted meant more lives lost. General Hayes contacted the fleet soon after, his voice grave over the comms. "Good work on the cannon," he said. "But the Krill aren't slowing down. Intelligence suggests they're preparing another wave of attacks. You need to hit them hard and fast," Jack sighed. "Understood, sir. We'll figure it out." After the call ended, Jack turned to Emily. "He's right. We can't afford to wait. What's your plan?" Emily explained her idea, amplifying sound waves through plasma fields to create harmonic disruptions. It was complex science, but she broke it down into simple terms. "Think of it like shattering glass with a high-pitched noise," she said. "If we can tune our weapons to the right frequency, we can break through their shields without firing a single shot." It sounded risky, but it was their best shot. With the fleet's resources stretched thin, they couldn't afford another direct confrontation. Jack agreed to let her proceed, though he made sure to keep an eye on her progress. He trusted Emily, but the pressure was mounting. One mistake could doom them all. Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to retrofit the fleet's weapons. Engineers crawled through tight spaces, rewiring circuits and recalibrating systems. Pilots practiced evasive maneuvers in preparation for future battles. Even Jack pitched in, lending his hands wherever they were needed. Despite the exhaustion, morale slowly began to improve. They had won once. They could win again. Meanwhile, tensions simmered among the survivors on Earth. Not everyone believed in the fleet's mission or humanity's chances of survival. In New York City, billionaire industrialist Robert Kane addressed a crowd of frightened citizens via live broadcast. Dressed in an expensive suit, he spoke with calm authority, urging people to accept the Krill's demands. "Fighting is futile," Kane declared, his voice smooth and persuasive. "These aliens possess technology far beyond ours. Resistance will only lead to further destruction. Surrender now, and we may yet preserve what remains of our civilization." His words sparked outrage among some and despair among others. Many accused him of cowardice, while others clung to his message as a lifeline. Back aboard Aurora, Jack watched the broadcast with disgust. "How can he say that?" he muttered. "Doesn't he realize what's at stake?" Emily shook her head. "People are scared, Jack. Fear makes them desperate. They'll listen to anyone who promises safety, even if it means giving up everything." Jack clenched his fists. "Well, I'm not giving up. Not while we still have a chance." The fleet's next mission came sooner than expected. A scout ship detected unusual activity near Jupiter, a massive gathering of Krill vessels. It was clear they were planning something big, likely another attack on Earth. Jack and Emily knew they couldn't let that happen. With their modified weapons finally ready, they prepared to strike. Before launching, Jack gathered the crew for a briefing. Standing at the front of the room, he looked each person in the eye. "This isn't going to be easy," he said. "But we've trained for this, we've fought for this, and we're not backing down now. If we succeed, we'll cripple their fleet and give Earth a fighting chance. Are you with me?" The response was unanimous. Cheers erupted, echoing through the ship. For the first time in days, hope burned brightly in their hearts. As the fleet approached the Krill armada, nerves ran high. The enemy ships loomed large in the distance, their metallic surfaces gleaming ominously. Jack led the charge, guiding Aurora closer to the heart of the formation. Around him, the other ships took positions, ready to execute Emily's plan. "Activate the harmonic disruptors," Emily instructed, her voice steady despite the tension. "Let's show them what we're made of." Jack flipped the switch, and the fleet unleashed its new weapons. Waves of amplified sound rippled through space, invisible but deadly. The Krill ships shuddered as their shields collapsed one by one. Without protection, they became vulnerable targets. The human fleet seized the opportunity, firing precision shots that crippled dozens of vessels. The Krill retaliated furiously, sending swarms of fighters to intercept the attackers. Lasers streaked across the battlefield, lighting up the void. Jack dodged incoming fire with practiced skill, weaving Aurora through the chaos. Beside him, Emily coordinated the fleet's movements, her voice cutting through the noise like a beacon of calm. "Keep moving," she shouted. "Don't let them flank us." Despite the odds, the fleet held its ground. Ship by ship, the Krill forces fell apart. Explosions lit up the darkness as their vessels disintegrated into clouds of debris. The tide of the battle had turned, but victory came at a cost. During the final moments of the engagement, Vanguard took a direct hit. Its engines failed, leaving it adrift in space. Lieutenant Sarah Bennett's voice crackled over the comms, strained but defiant. "We're hit, but we're still alive. Don't worry about us. Finish the job." Jack hesitated, torn between helping his friend and completing the mission. Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's right," she said gently. "We have to finish this." With a heavy heart, Jack ordered the fleet to press on. Together, they launched a final assault on the Krill command ship. Using the same harmonic disruptor technology, they disabled its shields and fired a concentrated volley of missiles. The resulting explosion was massive, engulfing the vessel in flames. When the smoke cleared, the Krill flagship was gone. Cheers erupted throughout the fleet, but they were short-lived. As they regrouped, Jack checked in with Vanguard. To his relief, Sarah's voice came through, weak but alive. "We're battered, but we'll make it," she reported. Thanks for not leaving us behind, Jack smiled faintly. Never. The fleet limped back toward Earth, battered but triumphant. Below them, the planet still bore the scars of war, but for the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. The Krill had been dealt a serious blow, and humanity had proven it could fight back. Jack and Emily stood side by side on the bridge, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport. We did it, Emily said quietly. Against all odds, we actually did it. Jack nodded, his expression somber. Yeah, but this isn't over. Not yet. Emily placed a hand on his arm. No, it's not. But we've shown them and ourselves that we're stronger than they thought. That's something. Far below, survivors celebrated cautiously, unsure of what the future held. Above them, the fleet stood ready to face whatever came next. The war was far from won, but humanity had taken its first real step toward reclaiming its home. The victory near Jupiter felt hollow. The fleet had crippled the Krill's command ship and dealt a significant blow to their forces, but the cost was steep. Vanguard limped back to Earth with critical damage, its crew barely holding on. The other ships weren't in much better shape. Burn marks scarred their hulls, systems were failing, and supplies were running dangerously low. Jack Morrison sat in the pilot's seat of Aurora, staring at the controls in front of him. His hands rested on the throttle, but he didn't move them. For the first time since the battle began, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. Emily. Dawson stood nearby, her eyes glued to the viewport. Earth loomed large in the distance, its blue and green surface marred by smoke and scars from weeks of relentless attacks. Despite everything they had accomplished, the planet still looked broken. We've bought some time, she said softly, breaking the silence. But how long will it last? Jack glanced at her, his expression grim. Not long enough. The Krill aren't just going to give up because we took out one of their flagships. They'll regroup, and when they do, they'll come harder than ever. Emily nodded, her mind racing. She knew Jack was right. The Krill were ruthless, efficient, and far more advanced than humanity. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for now, they had a brief window to prepare. And preparation meant answers. We need to figure out why they're here, she said. What do they want? It's not just about conquering Earth. There has to be more. Jack frowned. You think there's a bigger plan? I know there is, Emily replied firmly. No species goes to this much trouble just to wipe out another one. They're after something specific. If we can find out what it is, maybe we can use it against them. Her words sparked an idea in Jack's mind. He turned back to the controls and activated the comm system. General Hayes, he said, waiting for the older man's voice to crackle through the speakers. When it did, Jack wasted no time. Sir, we need intel. Anything you've got on the Krill technology, motives, weak points. We can't keep fighting blind. There was a pause on the other end before Hayes responded. Understood. I'll send what we have. But there's something else you should know. Jack tensed. What is it? Not everyone on Earth supports your mission, Hayes admitted reluctantly. Some believe resistance is futile and that surrender is the only way to survive. Jack's jaw clenched. You mean Kane? Yes, Hayes confirmed. Robert Kane has been spreading propaganda, urging people to lay down their arms. He claims humanity can't win and that collaboration with the Krill is our best chance. Emily stepped closer to the console, her face hardening. He's wrong. Surrender won't save us. It'll destroy us. Hayes sighed. I agree, but Kane isn't acting alone. Intelligence suggests he's been communicating with the Krill. We don't know how deep his betrayal runs, but it's dangerous. Jack slammed his fist against the dashboard. That coward sold us out. We'll deal with him later, Emily interjected sharply. Right now we need to focus on staying alive. If Kane gave the Krill information about the fleet, they'll come for us sooner rather than later, Hayes agreed. Stay sharp. I'll send reinforcements as soon as I can. Until then, trust no one outside this fleet." After the call ended, Jack and Emily shared a long look. Betrayal stung deeply, especially when it came from someone who claimed to care about humanity's survival. But dwelling on it wouldn't help. They had work to do. The fleet returned to Earth's orbit cautiously, cloaking technology masking their presence. Repairs began immediately, with engineers working around the clock to patch up the damaged ships. Supplies were rationed carefully, and every member of the crew pulled double shifts. Morale remained fragile, but determination kept them moving forward. Meanwhile, Emily dove into the data General Hayes had sent. It included intercepted transmissions, sensor readings, and fragments of alien code recovered from crashed Krill vessels. At first glance, it seemed like gibberish, but Emily's sharp mind began piecing it together. Hours turned into days as she pored over the information, searching for patterns or clues. One night, while the rest of the crew slept, Emily finally found something. Hidden within the alien code was a repeating sequence, a set of coordinates. Her heart raced as she cross-referenced the numbers against Earth's geography. The location matched a remote region in Antarctica. She called Jack immediately. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "These coordinates lead to a massive energy signature buried beneath the ice. Whatever it is, it's powerful, and the Krill know about it." Jack studied the data, his brow furrowed. "You think that's why they're here? To get whatever's under the ice?" "It makes sense," Emily replied. "If the Krill are after resources, this could be the key. Maybe it's a power source or a weapon. Either way, we can't let them take it." Jack nodded. "Then we protect it." No matter what, their plan was risky. With the fleet still recovering, sending a team to Antarctica would leave them vulnerable to attack. But they couldn't ignore the threat. Jack assembled a small strike force, including Lieutenant Sarah Bennett, who insisted on joining despite Vanguard's ongoing repairs. Together, they prepared for the mission. Before leaving, Jack confronted Robert Kane via a hacked transmission. The billionaire appeared on screen, his polished demeanor unshaken. "Captain Morrison," he said coolly, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" "You betrayed us," Jack spat. "You leaked our position to the Krill. How many lives is your so-called peace worth?" Kane leaned back in his chair, unfazed. "I did what was necessary to ensure humanity's survival. Fighting the Krill is suicide. Collaboration offers a future. A future where we're slaves?" Jack snapped. "Is that what you call survival?" Kane's smile faded, replaced by a cold glare. "You don't understand the bigger picture. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good." "There's nothing good about selling out your own species," Jack shot back. "True. Leaders stand up for their people. You're just a coward hiding behind excuses." The line went dead before Kane could respond. Seconds later, reports flooded in. Kane's base had been destroyed by the Krill. Apparently, the aliens viewed him as expendable once his usefulness ended. Jack stared at the blank screen, feeling a mix of anger and pity. In the end, Kane's betrayal hadn't saved anyone, it had only sealed his fate. The strike force landed in Antarctica hours later. The frozen landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, desolate and unwelcoming. Guided by Emily's coordinates, they trekked toward the energy signature. Along the way, they encountered signs of Krill activity, scorch marks on the ice, abandoned equipment, and strange metallic devices embedded in the snow. It was clear the aliens had been here before. When they reached the site, they discovered a massive structure buried beneath the ice. Its design was unmistakably alien, sleek and angular, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Emily examined it closely, her breath fogging in the frigid air. "This isn't natural," she murmured. "It's some kind of generator or maybe a gateway." As she worked to decipher its purpose, the ground trembled. A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Jack raised his weapon, scanning the horizon. "They're coming," he warned. Sure enough, Krill fighters descended from the sky moments later. The strike force scrambled for cover, exchanging fire with the enemy. Explosions rocked the ice, sending shards flying in all directions. Amid the chaos, Emily continued her analysis, refusing to abandon her post. "I almost have it," she shouted over the noise. Finally, she triggered something. The structure roared to life, emitting a pulse of energy that rippled outward. The Krill ships faltered, their systems disrupted by the sudden surge. Seizing the opportunity, Jack led a counterattack, driving the invaders back. When the dust settled, the strike force regrouped around the structure. Emily looked at Jack, her expression a mix of awe and fear. "This thing, it's a weapon, a defensive one. If we can harness its power, we might be able to turn the tide of the war." Jack nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Harnessing such immense energy would be dangerous, but it was also their best chance. "Let's get to work," he said. "We've got a planet to save." Above them, the auroras danced across the polar sky, casting shimmering lights over the icy wasteland. Below, humanity's last hope huddled around an ancient alien artifact, determined to wield its power against the invaders. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: giving up was not an option. Not anymore. The strike force returned to Aurora with the alien artifact secured in their cargo hold. It hummed faintly, its blue glow casting an eerie light across the ship's interior. Emily worked tirelessly to understand how it functioned, her hands moving quickly over a tablet as she analyzed its energy patterns. Jack stayed close, watching her intently. He trusted her completely, but the stakes were too high for mistakes. If they mishandled the artifact, it could destroy them, or worse, fall into the Krill's hands. "We need to figure this out fast," Jack said, pacing behind Emily. "If the Krill know we took it, they'll come after us." Emily didn't look up from her work. "I'm doing my best, Jack. This isn't exactly plug-and-play technology. It's alien, and it doesn't follow any rules I've ever seen." Her frustration was evident, but so was her determination. She had spent years studying anomalies and advanced physics, yet nothing compared to the complexity of the artifact. Its design seemed almost alive, shifting subtly as if reacting to her presence. Every time she thought she understood one aspect, another layer of mystery revealed itself. Hours turned into days as Emily pieced together fragments of knowledge. She discovered that the artifact wasn't just a weapon, it was a power source capable of generating near-limitless energy. The auroras over Antarctica hadn't been natural. They were a side effect of the artifact's activation. When she triggered it during the battle, she hadn't fully grasped what she was doing. Now she realized the potential danger. Harnessing such immense power required precision and caution. Jack checked in frequently, bringing her food and updates from the rest of the fleet. Morale remained fragile, but the crew clung to hope. Word of the artifact spread quietly among them, sparking whispers of optimism. For the first time since the war began, people dared to believe that humanity might actually stand a chance. Finally, after 3 sleepless nights, Emily made a breakthrough. She called Jack to the lab, her face pale but excited. "I think I've got it," she said, holding up her tablet. "The artifact amplifies energy exponentially when connected to a harmonic frequency. If we can sync it with our fleet's weapons systems, we can create a shield strong enough to repel the Krill, and maybe even disable their ships entirely." Jack frowned. "That sounds risky. What happens if we overload it?" Emily hesitated before answering. "It could destabilize the entire system. Worst case scenario, it destroys everything within range, including us." Jack stared at her. Weighing the risks, they didn't have many options left. The Krill were regrouping, their forces growing stronger by the day. If they waited too long, The invaders would overwhelm Earth completely. "Do it," he said finally. "But we test. If first, somewhere safe." The fleet relocated to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, using the dense field of rocks as cover while they prepared the artifact for deployment. Engineers worked around the clock, modifying the ship's systems to integrate with the alien device. Emily supervised every step, double-checking calculations and running simulations. Her hands trembled with exhaustion, but she refused to stop. Too much depended on getting this right. During one of the tests, disaster struck. A sudden surge of energy overloaded a section of Aurora's engines, causing a small explosion. Smoke filled the corridors, and alarms blared throughout the ship. Jack rushed to the scene, finding Emily coughing and covered in soot. "Are you okay?" he asked, grabbing her arm to steady her. She nodded, though her eyes were wide with shock. "It's unstable," she admitted. "We're pushing it too hard. If we try again without adjusting the frequency, it'll tear us apart." Jack clenched his jaw. "Then adjust it. We don't have time to start over." For the next several hours, Emily fine-tuned the artifact's settings, recalibrating its output to match the fleet's systems more precisely. The crew held their breath, knowing that one wrong move could mean catastrophe. Finally, she gave the signal. It was ready. The final battle took place near Saturn, where the Krill's main armada had gathered. Their numbers were overwhelming hundreds of ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built. From a distance, the fleet looked like a swarm of insects, closing in on Earth's defenders with cold efficiency. Jack led the charge, guiding Aurora toward the heart of the formation. Around him, the other ships formed a protective perimeter, their weapons primed for action. "Activate the artifact," Emily instructed, her voice tight with tension. "Let's show them what we're made of." Jack flipped the switch, and the artifact roared to life. Waves of energy pulsed outward, enveloping the fleet in a shimmering blue shield. The Krill opened fire immediately, their lasers and missiles slamming against the barrier. But instead of breaking through, the attacks were absorbed, feeding the artifact's power and strengthening the shield further. "They're not getting through," someone shouted over the comms. Jack grinned despite the chaos. "Now let's hit back." With the artifact cinched to their weapons, the fleet unleashed a barrage of amplified energy blasts. Each shot tore through the Krill's defenses, disabling shields and crippling their ships. Explosions lit up the darkness as dozens of vessels disintegrated into clouds of debris. The tide of the battle shifted dramatically, with humanity gaining the upper hand for the first time in the war. But victory came at a cost. During the chaos, Vanguard took a direct hit. Its engines failed, leaving it adrift in space. Lieutenant Sarah Bennett's voice crackled over the comms, strained but resolute. "We're down, but we're still alive. Keep fighting." Jack hesitated, torn between helping his friend and finishing the mission. Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's right," she said softly. "We have to finish this." Reluctantly, Jack ordered the fleet to press on. Together, they launched a final assault on the Krill command ship. Using the artifact's amplified power, they disabled its shields and fired a concentrated volley of missiles. The resulting explosion was massive, engulfing the vessel in flames. When the smoke cleared, the Krill flagship was gone. Cheers erupted throughout the fleet. But they were short-lived. As the surviving ships regrouped, Jack checked in with Vanguard. To his relief, Sarah's voice came through, weak but alive. "We're battered, but we'll make it," she reported. "Thanks for not leaving us behind." Jack smiled faintly. "Never." The fleet limped back toward Earth, battered but triumphant. Below them, the planet still bore the scars of war, but for the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. The Krill had been dealt a devastating blow, and humanity had proven it could fight back. Jack and Emily stood side by side on the bridge, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport. "We did it," Emily said quietly. "Against all odds, we actually did it." Jack nodded, his expression somber. "Yeah, but this isn't over." "Not yet." Emily placed a hand on his arm. "No, it's not. But we've shown them and ourselves that we're stronger than they thought. That's something." Far below, survivors celebrated cautiously, unsure of what the future held. Above them, the fleet stood ready to face whatever came next. The war was far from won, but humanity had taken its first real step toward reclaiming its home. Months passed after the battle near Saturn. The Krill had retreated, their forces scattered and leaderless without their command ship. Earth was no longer under constant attack, but the scars of war remained. Cities lay in ruins, fields were scorched, and millions mourned those they had lost. Yet amidst the devastation, a quiet resilience began to take root. People started rebuilding, not just their homes, but their spirits. For the first time since the invasion began, there was hope. Jack Morrison stood on a hill overlooking Houston, Texas. The city was far from recovered, but progress was visible. Workers cleared rubble from streets, and makeshift shelters housed survivors who refused to give up. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh earth and new beginnings. Beside him, Emily Dawson watched the horizon, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and determination. They hadn't spoken much since returning to Earth. Words felt unnecessary. The weight of everything they'd been through hung between them. Unspoken but understood. "It's going to take years," Jack said finally, breaking the silence. "Maybe decades," Emily nodded. "Yeah, but we'll get there. We have to." Jack glanced at her. "Do you ever wonder if it's worth it? All this fighting, all this loss. What are we really fighting for?" Emily turned to face him, her expression firm. "We're fighting for the chance to decide our own future. If we let the Krill win, we lose more than buildings or lives. We lose who we are. That's why it's worth it." Her words resonated with Jack. He had spent so much time questioning whether humanity could survive, whether their efforts mattered. But now, looking out at the people working tirelessly to rebuild, he realized something important. Survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about holding on to what made them human: hope, courage, and the will to keep going, even when the odds seemed impossible. The fleet that saved Earth became legends almost overnight. Stories of their bravery spread across the globe, inspiring survivors to come together. Civilians referred to them as Earth's last stand, though Jack and Emily preferred to stay out of the spotlight. They knew better than anyone how close humanity had come to annihilation. The victory wasn't theirs alone, it belonged to everyone who had fought, sacrificed, or simply refused to surrender. General Alan Hayes called a meeting at Area 51 to discuss the next steps. Jack, Emily, and the remaining crew gathered in the same conference room where their mission had begun. The general looked older, his face lined with worry, but his voice carried the same authority it always had. "You've done the impossible," he said, addressing the group, "but the war isn't truly over. The Krill may return, and when they do, we need to be ready." Jack leaned forward. "What's the plan?" Hayes gestured to a holographic display showing a map of Earth. "We can't rely on Project Eclipse forever. Those ships are prototypes, and they've taken too much damage to last another major conflict. Our priority now is to build new defenses, better ones. Using what we learned from the artifact and the fleet's technology, we can create systems to protect Earth permanently." Emily nodded. "That artifact changed everything. If we study it further, we might unlock even more potential. Maybe we can develop weapons or shields strong enough to stop the Krill for good. But we can't focus only on defense," Jack added. "We need to explore space, find allies, learn more about the Krill and other threats out there. If we stay blind, we're vulnerable," Hayes agreed. "Then it's settled. We'll divide resources between research, defense, and exploration. Humanity has proven it can fight back. Now it's time to ensure we never have to again." As plans moved forward, Jack and Emily found themselves drawn into different roles. Emily dedicated herself to studying the artifact, determined to uncover its secrets fully. She believed it held answers not just to defeating the Krill, but to advancing humanity's place in the galaxy. Her lab became a hub of innovation, attracting scientists and engineers eager to learn from her discoveries. Jack, meanwhile, took charge of training new pilots and crews for the next generation of ships. Though reluctant at first, he embraced the responsibility, knowing that humanity's survival depended on preparation. He pushed recruits hard, teaching them not just how to fly, but how to think strategically and adapt in the face of uncertainty. Many admired him for his skill and leadership, though he often reminded them that heroism wasn't about glory. It was about doing what needed to be done. Despite their separate paths, Jack and Emily stayed close. They met regularly to share updates, bouncing ideas off each other, and challenging one another to think bigger. Their partnership had grown stronger through shared struggles, and they trusted each other implicitly. Together, they represented the best of humanity: ingenuity, perseverance, and an unwavering commitment to protecting their species. One evening, months after the war ended, Jack and Emily climbed the same hill outside Houston where they had stood before. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Below them, lights flickered in the distance as cities slowly came back to life. Crickets chirped softly, and the air smelled clean, free of smoke and ash. "You know," Emily said after a long pause, "I used to think science was about finding answers. But now I realize it's also about asking questions, about pushing boundaries and daring to imagine what's possible." Jack smiled faintly. "Sounds like you're talking about more than just science," she chuckled. "Maybe I am. Look at us, we started with nothing but scraps and a desperate plan, and somehow we won. Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we refused to quit." He nodded, gazing at the stars above. "Do you think we'll ever see peace? Real peace?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "But I do know one thing. We've proven that humanity can rise above anything, even itself. As long as we keep believing in that, we'll find a way." Jack looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude. For all the pain and loss they had endured, moments like this made it worthwhile. Together, they had faced the darkest chapter in Earth's history and emerged stronger for it. As the night deepened, the sky filled with stars. Somewhere among them, remnants of the Krill fleet drifted silently, a reminder of the dangers lurking beyond Earth. But tonight, Jack and Emily chose to focus on the present, on the planet below, flickering with signs of life and resilience, on the promise of tomorrow. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the battles fought or the victories won, but the belief that humanity could endure and thrive. Against all odds, they had turned despair into hope, chaos into order, and fear into courage. And as long as that spirit burned within them, the future would always be worth fighting for.